What was that about, Cat? Wow. I don't know why I'm typing. I can talk, you can't talk, but how's it going? There we go. There's like a good 20-second lag from when I do something to when it seems to show up on the stream. So, and this is apparently the fast mode. There's a delayed or slow mode, and then a really delayed mode that is basically chat is doing its own thing, and apparently, like the person running the stream gets it later. No, so most of my family is in Florida, and everybody that I know here, which is not a large number of people, is doing it with their own family. So nothing new. I will go see my family sometime probably after New Year's, and like my sister goes and sees family and friends up north. It's just a mess. There's no point in trying to do it over the holiday exactly. So my Christmas dinner tomorrow will probably be, I don't know, I'll make jambalaya or something. I'm in Texas. I'm in Bernie, Texas. I used to be in Connecticut when I started the channel, but I moved to Bernie May of this year. So that's really weird. When I had just my extra account, it didn't show a user here. Now that you're here, it shows two people watching. And my extra account shows one person watching. So it doesn't register itself, it only registers you. Very strange. Oh, wait, now I'm back to one. So if you're still here, apparently we had somebody else in momentarily. Don't know. Yeah, it might be on IP address. And I'm still figuring out StreamYard. So for all I know, I'm screwing something up. Are you looking for a carry gun, a range gun, something collectible? Like what's the general field? Because otherwise, you know the answer. It's Glock. When in doubt, it's a Glock. That might be a bad answer, but it's the answer. Or a SIG P320, or not an HK these days, but CZ. The CZ polymer stuff drives me nuts, but range woods gun. Oh, okay. Range woods gun. So, I mean, are you somewhere you potentially have to deal with bears, or are you just talking fun in the woods and okay, maybe that, yeah. I mean, you can never go wrong with a good 357. It's really I mean, hell, do it like a Ruger Vaquero or equivalent. Uh, Lots of fun to shoot. You're not going to blow through a ton of ammo. Um, you can get one, prettied up, and hell, with a little practice, I mean, that's 6 shots downrange in 2 seconds. I've done 5 since it was CAS. 5 shots on steel. Well, the Ruger Vaquero, but anything else, there's like half a dozen equivalent guns. Berti, Pieta, um, who was the other company that made one? They're all Italian imports. I mean, they're basically Colt peacemakers. They're Colt single action armies made by somebody not charging Colt pricing. They're, the new Colts are just stupid money, and the quality is not any better. I want to say, well, let's do this. Let's do. Cimarron is another one. I'm pulling up some pictures here. Images. So Pieta's calling it the 1873. Let me put that over. Oops, that didn't make it. Come on. The shared screen doesn't want to cooperate. Okay. So let me share that screen. Oh, come on. Yeah, they're single action. So share screen. So one of those. But yes, double action. Yeah, double action. I mean, I wouldn't do the new Python. I have heard mixed reviews about the quality, and they're an expensive gun. But I mean, any of the Smith and Wessons, any of the double action Rugers, although they're not my favorite. It's just a personal preference thing. Mechanically, they're great. Well, all the good revolvers these days are crazy money. I made the mistake. I was in Cabela's. I mean, it's been 15 years. And I was looking at their used case, and they had a used, like 5-inch or so Python, old school, like original, beautiful gun, a little dinged up, but mechanically great. And they wanted $800 for it. And I go, oh, hell no. Yeah. It sold, and then it was back in the case shortly before I moved for $2,000. So yeah, should have bought it. Yeah, I mean, a 686, a Smith & Wesson 686. What else is? I mean, you could always go with like a Dan Wesson, if you can find one of those. I don't know that they're still making them, but they had yeah. I mean, it's the GP 100s. I don't personally like them. The way the grip fits, the mechanics of the gun don't suit me. But on the other hand, if you handed me one and said you're going out for a month-long stroll in Alaska, okay. I mean, it'll certainly do the job. I'm not worried about the gun. To me, the beauty of the 686 is that everybody and their brother makes grips. Everybody or their brother that's a gunsmith knows how to work on it. Yeah, if you want to change anything, somebody makes that part. And the older I get, the less I want to fiddle around and have to dig for parts. I'm not a big fan of the Hogue grips. Uh, they work. They just they stick to things. They catch on clothing. They're almost too good. If you're looking for a grip to go to the range, great. Like it absolutely, like your hand is not going to move in the grip. Hang on, let me make sure I'm not running over a cat. Okay. So let me stop. There we go. So this is a Hogue grip on my 642, and it is their regular mono grip. And this is a very old one. It is vulcanized to some extent, and it's still like it's tacky almost. Uh, I don't use that grip when I conceal carry that gun. Like that's how I know I haven't carried that gun concealed in at least a year, because I would have swapped the grip out. I would have gone to the factory grip, or I would have gone to a wooden grip, because that one, it catches on your clothing. You can't conceal it without it showing. Basically, it prints horribly because your shirt sticks to it. Not like stuck on, but like when they slide against each other, it grabs and buckles. But yeah, I mean, but the options for grips for the GP100s compared to the options for 686s, yeah. I'm kind of traditional. If I'm going to carry it around in the woods, if I'm looking for something like that, I want a nice, decently checkered wooden grip, probably relatively high back. Something that lets me get my hand way up on there. Oops. Hiya, Steve. I went to type like I'm not the person with the video. I did that with Michael too. Yeah, I mean the 686, even if the factory trigger is lousy, it'll take a gunsmith an hour. A GP100 trigger was designed by lawyers, and it's okay, but the GP100 trigger was designed for somebody who was going to carry the gun a lot more than they shot it. The 686 trigger was designed for somebody who was going to shoot it a lot more than they carried it. I mean, the trigger on the 642 here is excellent. That's hysterical. That looked blue. There we go. It's definitely not blue. That is funny. Looks good blue. So let me. Well, I may have to eat my words, because it looks like Eagle Grips is doing some nice grips for the GP100. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, these days, 40 cents a round for 38 is pretty nice. As long as it's decent ammo and not, total trash. That's stuff's been going for crazy money. I'm so glad that I was ready to reload it. I'd done some loading for it, but like I hadn't, it's not a round I shoot a lot of, so I had never done bulk loading for it. And literally like pre-election, I was like, oh, hey, let me order some extra cases and pick up a box or two of bullets, like the bulk boxes. And I'm like, oh, you know, let me do that just in case. Yeah, just in case. It's the only reason I have ammo for my 38. Well, 3G7, but yeah, yeah. MagTech is good stuff. Um, Nothing crazy, but I've never had any problems with it. Certainly, it's good standard factory ammo. And yeah, that does look a lot like the Python grip, except it looks like it flares more at the top, which I like. But it's not a concealed carry grip. That's a range or woods grip, or nobody would really use that for competition. But to me, it looks more comfortable and more practical. The thing I like about the Hogues is if you're doing like bullseye competition and you're doing it under a time clock where it's okay, you've got 30 seconds to get your 6 shots. You don't have to worry about your grip shifting. Your fingers are basically locked in, and that's a thing. That's an important asset. Whereas with grips like these, if you got full power loads, I mean, every shot or two, you may need to readjust your grip if you're going for maximum accuracy. Oh, geez. Uh, Not a lot, but I mean, most people don't have a lot of experience with it because it's expensive as hell and specialized. It's hunting ammo. The most of the Underwood and Buffalo Bore stuff is dedicated hunting ammo or self-defense, but most of it is, in my experience, for something like 57 or 44, you're going hog hunting or you're deer hunting with it. Uh, I mean, it's overkill for anything smaller than that. Sorry, the chat is like little tiny text on my screen. I have a 4K screen, and yeah, I can see the chat, but I can't always read it. Holy shit! Oh, out of the Henry, yeah. God, that's got to be going Mach 3. That, that's going to be crazy fast. I got to imagine like if you shoot ballistic gel or water jugs or something, I mean, it's got to be impressive when those hit. I mean, that'd be a great deer gun. Yeah, yeah. I mean, 30. There's nothing special about 30-30. It was just one of the first. And let's face it, modern technology passed it by. I mean, hell, Bill Wilson managed to make 30-30 into something that like the 300 hammer that fits in a AR-15, 30-30 energy out of something that's half the size. I'm not sure. Like the gold dot bullet is a pretty old thing, and the Underwoods usually are as modern and high tech as they can do. I mean, they're not trying to push the envelope into the way out there world, but they're pushing it. I'm also not sure gold dot would expand the way you want at that speed. It may just come apart. Gold dot it's designed for normal velocities and controlled expansion, but it is designed to expand. So if you push it 50% faster, you may just come apart. Although it could be bonded. It could be the bonded gold dot. That holds together better. Oh, geez. Yeah, I haven't seen any 257. I mean, it's not like I specifically look for it. It's not a caliber I use, but it is not something that I've noticed on the shelf. Yeah, so it could be the gold dot. The bonded gold dot is designed to go through windshields, car doors, things like that, and then still meet the requirements of the standard gold dot requirements. So for most of us in normal circumstances, the bonded gold dot is actually not going to expand normally. It's really too tough. It's not just bonded. That's one of the things that throws people off because there's a lot of bonded bullets out there that are just they bonded the jacket to the lead. Bonded gold dot is different. Like it's just different from regular gold dot. I don't remember what else was like that. There was another bullet like that. Did they like it's harder lead? It's the whole thing was just designed for heavier penetration. Because the bonded gold dot was designed for police and FBI use through doors and stuff. Yeah, I can imagine. And yeah, I mean, hard cast is the traditional. The heavy hard cast is the traditional hunting bullet for that stuff. Semi wad cutters, things like that. Um, I mean, that's the Elmer Keith tradition, and it works. I mean, I'm a fan of modern bullet design, but again, it's one of those like, is it really better? Maybe. I mean, at some point you go, well, I mean, the deer or the hog is dead. Would it be deader with something else? This is so bad. I'm wearing pants with like zipper pockets, and I keep playing with the zipper. It looks like I'm playing with myself. So I keep looking over because I've got my laptop right here, and I've got the shared screen even further over. Wow, that lags. That is, I mean, there's a good. I just watched myself take that drink. That was that was a while ago. Yeah, I mean the 1.2. I'm betting that it as I gain subs for the next month, I will probably not go up much because I'm guessing that like when I bugged my friends about it, I'm betting that one of them paid to add subs because it was too fast. Like I had figured they were gonna like do a couple shout outs or something, and all of a sudden I was just getting subs, and I don't think they'll stick around. I think a good chunk of those are going to drift off, but the laptop normally lives there. The other screen is new. I rearranged this whole thing. Um, the window you're looking at behind me is normally the one that's behind me when I film in here, and this is what is usually against that wall, and my desk is usually over there. So I rearranged yesterday and discovered that I'm getting old because I hurt. I woke up this morning going, "Oh my God, that was not heavy. Why am I sore?" And it's from crawling around on the floor and shuffling equipment around. Yeah. It's weird. It's like my thighs hurt. My inside of my thighs, like I was riding a horse for the whole day or something. Uh, but I'm guessing it's from all the times I was like crouched in weird positions lifting stuff, because it was just me and I was moving the furniture myself, and I moved it 3 or 4 times before I was happy with it. Yeah, that's like 20 or 30 seconds lag. Whatever. Well, I mean, we're an hour in, so it doesn't look like too many people are going to show up. So let me go grab something that I was not saving, but I pulled out for the first live stream. Come on, come on. There we go. Yeah, it's slow. It's sort of focused. So this guy is a, what was it? Kerr and Son. My brain is not functional right now. It's been so long since I read it. Yeah, Emil Kerner and Son, and it is, yeah, yeah. I mean, it is very old school. The scope is actually much newer than the rifle. The rifle dates from pre-World War One. It is an Emil Kerner and Son, and they didn't produce under that name after World War One. It was like 1914 or so. They changed it because the son was officially like registered as his own gunsmith. So then it was like Emil Kerner and Son Company, and they were trying to pretend they were bigger than they were, but they were a little private gunsmith in Germany, and basically this was, some rich German nobility's toy. And my great uncle found it, looted it, liberated it. Who knows what the actual story is? I never got it from him. I got it from my grandfather, and found it in the Black Forest. And I'm sure it was some hunting lodge, but he brought it back. And my grandfather committed absolute sacrilege and did this to it. He put a freaking cuts compensator on it, took off the rear sight. There's a little dovetail here that has been filled in, and mounted a Redfield to it. And it was done absolutely professionally. Don't get me wrong, it was done very well. But, I mean, come on. But, I mean, in 1945, this was not exactly a piece of history. It was just another rifle, at least from his perspective. So this was my grandfather's deer, moose, elk, whatever rifle for most of his life. He was probably late 20s, early 30s at the end of World War II, and had this until he died. I mean, it was his primary hunting rifle until he stopped hunting. And it absolutely kicks like a mule because it doesn't weigh anything. It's 8mm Mauser. So yeah, it's mechanically, it is a standard 8mm Mauser, other than being a civilian model in the sense that like the way the magazine works and stuff is not the military type. There's no provision for stripper clips or anything like that. But it's a straight 8mm Mauser. But it doesn't weigh anything. It's an extremely light rifle. It's extremely short. I mean, like, you can tell, like, that's not a long barrel. Very narrow barrel, very skinny. lightweight trim stock, and the butt pad that's not rubber, that's plastic. I'm guessing that it's not original because it has an American name on the back, but I'm guessing that that's what my grandfather put on to replace whatever was originally on there. And yeah, it kicks like a freaking pissed off mule. But you only really need one shot. That was my grandfather's theory, is that the cuts compensator gets it sort of under control, and if he needs a second shot, he needs a second shot. He'll probably get back on target in time. Uh, I certainly can't shoot twice at anything past like 50 yards and hit anymore rapidly enough to get a second shot off. Whatever it is ran off. But it is definitely a pretty rifle. It is showing its age. No matter what I do, it seems to get a little more corrosion every year. But who knows? Maybe one of these days I will, because it's lost any collector's value at this point after what my grandfather did to it. So one of these days I may have it refinished, because mechanically it's great. It's a set trigger, so you can pull the rear trigger, set, and then this trigger, very light, stupid light. And well, no, the internals are all good. Mechanically works great. I haven't shot in probably 8 or 9 years, just because I don't shoot it. But mechanically speaking, yeah. At one point, the set trigger wasn't setting because it had basically gotten gummed up, and soaked it in some oil, worked it a bunch of times, and it works fine now. But yeah, I mean, it is mechanically, it is overbuilt. The 8mm Mausers were always a very tough action. It's controlled feed. But yeah, so this one, as far as I know, I can't remember ever putting this on the channel. So as far as I know, this is the only time this has been on the channel, and really doesn't have a reason to get put on the channel, which is why I was kind of like, well, let's do it on the live feed, and that'll be it. Like, you know, it is what it is. Oops, yeah. Yeah, that's a stiff pull without the set trigger. That's probably like 7-8 pounds of pull. 8mm Mauser is just European 30-06, basically. A little stouter in the loading, but functionally equivalent. Like, you can load 30-06 to 8mm Mauser loadings, but like a typical 8mm Mauser hunting load is a little hotter than the average 30-06 from the same era. But you're neck and neck. It was the World War I, World War II German infantry round. So, I mean, the same thing the MG42 shoots. But yeah, it's no 300 Win Mag, but you wouldn't shoot 300 Win Mag out of it weighs like 5.5 pounds. So 5.5 pounds, no recoil pad. The cuts compensator kind of helps, but by modern standards, they're not very effective. That was a compensator that was originally intended for like the bar, or they used them on Tommy guns, the Thompson gun, but not obviously in that same caliber, but scaled up. But it makes for a really loud shockwave. It's impressively loud. A buddy of mine was standing in the port next to me when I shot it, and that was the first time he'd heard it shot. And he was like, I almost got knocked over by the concussive blast. And at that point, it became his favorite rifle, and he loves to shoot it. But I'm like, dude, ammo's expensive now. Buy your own. Yeah, yeah. I would say the 270 Magnum might be higher in recoil. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look it up, but usually would be in a heavier rifle. It'd be pretty rare to have a 270 Magnum in anything that light. Yeah. Looking up the recoil impulse. Come on. That's not helpful. I look up the recoil impulse for 270 Magnum, and it gives me 7mm Winchester short Magnum and 7mm Remington Magnum. Not helpful. Here we go. So 30-06. That's not, oh yeah, okay, there you go. So about 20 foot-pounds of energy. So yeah, it's actually a little more than that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's not held in place somehow, if it's, attached, but then it can freely move. I mean, there's a reason when somebody gets shot wearing hard armor, even with a 5.56, like it might not knock you over, but I mean, just that hit hurts. I've got buddies who are like, yeah, I got hit in the chest by an AK, and it wasn't even directly on. It was like at an angle. He's like, I've got skid marks on my plate, and he's like, I had the imprint of my plate in my chest for a week. So, yeah, yeah. There's a reason they use chain, man. You're not supposed to use rope. Plus, it probably cut the rope. That force, unless the loops were really rounded, or if there was like a hook and then the rope. But even then, the splatter from the bullet is going every direction, and it'll cut rope. So even if it like frayed it a little bit, and then yeah. I mean, it's that thing when you shoot steel with it, like at 200 yards, you think the steel is going to go flying. Like you think it's going to normal steel like you would use at a range. Yeah. My old range back when I lived in Connecticut has a massive plate. I mean, just stupid thick. Like you shoot it with 50 BMGs and stuff, they don't care. And it is essentially bedded into a sand pile. It's in a frame, but behind it is just sand. It's just a big mound of sand. And so you're shooting this with sand pushed up against it. So you see it shift, but it never goes anywhere. And I shot it with that 8mm. I've seen people shoot it with like 300 Win Mags. And if you shoot it off to one side, like you better shoot it on the other side because it has turned itself a little bit. Whereas 308, 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, obviously 223, like it doesn't even twitch. You're like, did it hit? Because it doesn't, the sand is up against it, so it doesn't make a ting, it makes a thud. And yeah, I mean, I've shot it with 6.5 and was like, I don't know if I hit. I'm assuming I hit, but could not hear it because somebody else was shooting. It's actually one of the reasons I did the suppressor of the 300 blackout project. Uh, I wanted to be able to shoot and hear the steel even with lighter ammo. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, normally that'd be fine. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what that plate is, but it's several inches thick. It's several inches thick, and it is like there's dents in it. I mean, there's little divots from people doing it with a 50, but everything else just shatters when it hits. I saw a guy just hammering it with a Barrett prone, and even that, because he was center punching it, it was just there'd be a little puff of sand from behind it. He was happy because he's like, "There's no other range in the state that'll let me shoot steel." And everybody's like, "No, because you'll put a hole in it. You'll ding it up so much we have to replace it." People are obnoxious. The range I was at, they'd put out steel and have a huge note saying, no X, Y, and Z, and no ammo, designed for penetrating armor and so on, because it would damage the plates, and then you'd have to replace them. And like a week later, they put up brand new plates, and like a week later, they got to tear them down, and it was just like, come on, there's a reason our freaking dues are so high. That was an expensive range. It was worth it, but wow, it looks like I have a lazy eye because of the angle of the camera. But I can't look at myself in the screen and the camera, so it's making my eye freak out. I've always just used Rust-Oleum or whatever was cheapest. Yeah, I wish I had a spot for it. Land here is stupid expensive. Land in Connecticut was stupid expensive. Um, there are areas of Texas you can get cheap land, but they're not around here. This is Burning itself is very expensive in general, and the running joke is there's a Bernie tax, and anything you buy in Bernie other than like chain stores is you're just paying a premium. It's crazy, and certainly if you want to buy property around here, Demolition Ranch is here along with Matt Best and Donut Operator. I think he's actually in San Antonio. Eli Double Tap is in San Antonio. Um, Take it easy, man. It was great to see you. Happy holidays. Oh, apparently, we have somebody else here. Come on, folks. Whoever you are, say something in chat. You can if you're not a subscriber, you can subscribe. Type unsubscribe. I don't care. But yeah, you do have to be subscribed to chat. I guess let me repost that banner. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to. I mean, I certainly have my opinions, but we all do. But I try to at least keep it to real information, not hype and mythology. I like mythology, but Greek and Roman, Norse. Uh, I was going to, and I didn't. And unfortunately for the Pew Pew collection, it looks like that's not going to happen uh, because there's a guitar I want coming out, and it basically is the cost of the gun, a cheap gun. It's, it's probably going to be like a $600 guitar. And the fancy version of it is 1600, something like that. And I've wanted one for a long time. I just wasn't willing to spend the money. So, yeah, instead of the gun that I was going to get, yeah, I may still buy the Hollow Sun 507, which is the Hollow Sun version of an RMR sight to put on my P80. That's been on my list for a while. That was actually part of the original plan for the P80. And that's on sale for 300, 310. And I'm like, it's like $50 off. I've got a few days to decide on that. You get anything? Any toys? Because that's my problem. At this point, it's all toys. I have zero justification for another gun other than entertainment because I don't make any money on YouTube. So it's not like I can be Demolition Ranch and be like, oh yeah, it's for the channel. Yeah, yeah. The mounting system for a lot of guns sucks. I noticed when I was trying to figure out like different brand slides for the P80 build, and did it make more sense to skip the optic on that and just buy something? Um, I basically figured out that there's RMR mounts, there's RMR with an adapter plate needed, and then there's, hi, we want you to buy our proprietary system, screw you. Yeah, yeah. The Holosun with the ACSS reticle, I think I think it's one of the best out there. I just wish it wasn't Chinese. But the battery tray not being underneath, so you don't have to take it off, because not everybody uses a plate. So if you don't use a plate, great, your zero just went away. I mean, sure, probably close enough. It's a handgun, but because the theory with the RMR was always that it was mounted to a plate that then mounted to the gun, and there was like pin locators on the plate. Oh, I mean, if you don't use the plate, there's no pin locators. Yeah. Uh, I've had a couple ex-girlfriends like that. That was good. There we go. Yeah. I mean, it could be worse. The ones I had that weren't into guns were understanding about it and were just as bad and knew it about their hobbies. I dated a young lady. Right, exactly. Exactly. The MOS system is the same stupidity. It's like, why couldn't you just do what the slide I bought does? There's a cutout. Take the plate, like the cover plate off, and it's an RMR spot. Done. Because then everybody could just do RMR format. Like, I'm sorry, why do we need 10 different optics mount formats? I mean, Picatinny rails, universal. Nobody comes up with a new optics mount for regular rifles unless they absolutely have to. You know, it's not like scope makers are like, oh yeah, we're going to do a 33 millimeter and a 27 millimeter. No, they freaking go with what people do already. I freaking cut myself shaving, and then I just scratched the scab off. And the really annoying part is, I mean, clearly I haven't shaved it in a while, right here. But like it never quite healed entirely because I keep scratching it. I mean, it makes sense because the RMRs, the government, that's their toy. I mean, the fact that we get them is secondary. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I bled a fair bit yesterday moving stuff around and redoing wiring because it's a very cheap desk that I'm using and sharp corners underneath. But my hands heal. My face tends to take forever. My hands, eh. But yeah, I mean, that's when I was shopping for slides, that was one of the criteria. I wanted a cheap slide set up for optics already, did a standard RMR cut already. Just I didn't want any adapter plates. I didn't want any of that shit. Just mount it and go. And I mean, there were a bunch of them, but most of them were expensive. I didn't need anything fancy. I was not building a race gun or a show gun. Hell, I don't even carry the thing. Like it literally, the original plan was, which I've said repeatedly in the past, is it was supposed to go in my emergency gear. And it may eventually actually do that for real. I need another 500 rounds through it before I'm really confident. Because I don't know, I had shenanigans with it for the first couple hundred, and I think I've got it all fine tuned and dealt with. But once you have a few unexplained malfunctions, you get nervous. I mean, I'm still waiting for my first malfunction on my SIG P320, and I've got an HK that has never had a malfunction that was not ammo related, meaning like there was defective ammo. Okay, so we're gonna. Well, right, but I've already got it cut. Like it came cut, and I mean it wouldn't matter how cheap they were because the slide I bought was one of the cheapest options for slides, even before the fact that it was a cut. It was an optics cut. If it was like $5 more than their version of it without the optics cut, and it came with the plate to cover it. Like it's not an adapter plate; it's just a fill in the gap plate. Let me turn off that banner. But I do like it though. I mean, it does everything I wanted to do. Its finish is held up perfectly fine for a stupid cheap slide. It worked out fine. Of course, now you're going to ask me what it is, and I don't remember. I would have to go look up my order history and figure out who it was. I want to say it was, man. Now I'm pissed at myself because I don't remember. It was the Rocky Brass Precision Glock 19 CES slide with RMR cut in tungsten, as in the color tungsten, not the material. And I am guessing that it's not even available anymore. Oh, no, it is. 150 bucks right now on sale. In stock in flat dark earth and black with an RMR cut and black with a window with an RMR cut for an extra $10. That's pretty good. A bit of everything. Self-taught, classes. I've got friends and associates who are very knowledgeable in their slice, and I've always been much more of a generalist. Yeah, Rocky Brass is one of the main third-party, non-big name suppliers for that stuff. They were big, very popular in the community for a while, and then other vendors took over. But when the P80 stuff first became really popular, they were one of the only places that really supported it, as opposed to like a Brownells. They had some parts, but they weren't focused on that market yet. Yeah, I mean, I am older than I look. I am in my mid 40s and have been into guns in a technical as well as just fanboy way since I was a little kid. My grandfather was a competitive, like nationally competitive bench press shooter, and he was a very technical guy. He was very into exactly how things worked, why it worked, what worked better than other things, and why. And just that was how I got into guns, because my parents are actually relatively anti-gun. not like rabidly, but just they have no interest, don't care, don't particularly like them, would rather them not be around. And that meant that like the time with my grandfather doing that stuff was just that much more embedded in my memory. And then from there, just I've always done as much of my own gunsmithing as I could, which meant you had to learn, because otherwise you screwed up. You spent more money. You took it to a gunsmith to spend more money to fix what you screwed up. And I mean, I've certainly done that a few times. It's a very quick lesson. You do that on something and you very quickly learn what you should have done. And yeah, you don't do that one twice. You do it again on something else though. And don't be confused on some of this stuff. I'm literally looking it up for the video. Like when there's specs on a round, if it's not something that I was already familiar with, I do my research. And I probably don't remember it a week later, unless it was something I particularly cared about. But like comparing certain rounds, I Google it, I make notes, I then think through, what are the real consequences of that? What does that mean in terms of the context of the video that I want to make? And do the video. I mean, it's the same thing like Ian McCollum does. He doesn't know everything about all those guns. He's literally going, okay, I've got access to this cool gun. Let me make sure I've done all my research on it, do the video, and you remember as much as you can remember later. He's actually mentioned that a couple times on the channel on Unforgotten Weapons, that he finds out ahead of time what's going to be available at like the auction houses, and then says, okay, I've got these things, and that'll make a good video because there's 5 versions of the same thing. Let me do all my digging on those rather than random, and then he gets screwed up because there's something really cool that he didn't know about, and he's basically got to rush through the other videos, do some research real quick, and then make an extra video. I mean, it is definitely just time. It is one of those things, like, people who acquire it very quickly very often don't have any context. Oh, I mean, they're horrible. They're horrible. Even the guys assigned to attack unit very often are just less horrible. Uh, I mean, let's face it, most law enforcement, they're not gun people. They carry a gun as part of their job. That doesn't mean they give a damn one way or the other. They don't practice necessarily unless they're otherwise gun people. They practice enough to qualify, and that's it. And I mean, if we're real about it, let's face it, most cops don't have to use their gun in the line of duty. It's like saying, they have to be an expert on the law. No, they have to know what they're supposed to arrest somebody for, what they're not, what's a ticket, what's not. You're not a lawyer, you're not the judge. Like, you're part of the process, but you're not the whole process. And I mean, honestly, the main thing I see with police officers, and it makes sense, is grappling, general martial arts. Like, you're going to get in a scuffle way more than you're going to have to shoot somebody. You're going to have to arm wrestle somebody to get cuffs on. Yeah, yeah. Well, and I understand. I don't like it, but I understand it because police deal with crap people all day. I mean, look, 90% of the people a cop deals with are criminals, or at least associating with criminals, or potentially associating with criminals. Like, it just, that colors your perception over time. I've dealt with a number of officers where I'm like, dude, you need to get out of law enforcement for a while. Go do something else for a couple of years, because you are so jaded that you think everybody is like the people you deal with. Yeah, on the job. Like, it is what it is. If you deal with shitty people all day, you start to assume that everybody's shitty. It's just like I assume all politicians and all the media, people in the media, are liars. They're not all liars. They're not all corrupt, but enough of them are that I just assume they are. So, are you still working in law enforcement, or are you doing something else now? And since there's a nice lag, I'll keep going. Talking about TAC officers, I went to. Okay. So I made it originally as I really appreciate Forgotten Weapons, and I really appreciate a couple other channels that basically are knowledge repositories. They're designed to give real information, not as entertainment, not as selling something necessarily. They are, here is the information, do with it what you will. And with the intent of educating people, or at least putting it out there for the future. And one of the things I was seeing is that there is so much misinformation about basic realities of firearms. Not the mechanics of one, not the brands or anything like that necessarily, but like, how does it really work? How do different calibers really compare? Safety stuff. Um, and some stuff that I can't do on YouTube, like reloading stuff, is really, you just can't. They nix that real quick. But like basic fundamentals of operation, of why does something like an AR-15 work versus something else. And there aren't a lot of channels that do that. A lot of them are very marketing oriented. A lot of them are very hype, uh, or wrong, flat out wrong. I think the final decision to actually do the channel is I was watching a video from a major company. I mean, this was I mean, they've got like 8 million subscribers. And they said something in their channel that it was an off the cuff comment. They totally know better. Like they just didn't correct themselves. But it was 100% wrong. Like it was a factual statement that was absolutely wrong on something that people get confused all the time. And I was like, wow, we need something out there that is a little more focused on the facts. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm 100% accurate. I'm as accurate as I can be. And when I'm wrong, if I catch it, I will correct it. If somebody calls me out on it, I will figure it out. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I support being a lawyer, but my brother-in-law was a lawyer and he's a great guy. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll see where it goes. But the original intent was education for new or firearms enthusiasts who want to learn as opposed to just shoot. Um, because nothing I'm teaching is like I'm not teaching you tactics. I'm not teaching real in-depth like shooting skills. I cover some basics now and then, but I'm not the guy who's showing you like speed drills and stuff. Well, I mean, either way, you're going to wind up in court, right? I know most lawyers don't go to court, but it is the joke. But hey, I mean, it's not like the career's going away. I kicked myself over and over. I was having a conversation with my mom a few days ago that regret the decisions I made when I was a late teen, early 20s in terms of career, because the things I've chosen to do for a living are all things that it's really not secure. It bounces around, it changes. You're constantly wondering if there's a career next year. And I feel like I would have been better served with something more boring, more stable. My cousin is an accountant, and he does not like being an accountant, does not like the work, but it gives him the stability to do whatever else he wants. But yeah, you couldn't pay me to be a teacher in this day and age. I have a bunch of friends who are teachers, and every single one of them, whether they're liberal or conservative or somewhere in the middle, is absolutely hating life. Like they hate their job. So I was IT and safety, not like physical safety so much as, well, I guess it is physical safety, commercial industrial safety, workplace accidents, things like that. At the time, I was focused on hazmat. Now I'm doing it freelance, and I'm focused on just safety stuff and basically consulting, training, things like that. But just how to keep people from screwing up and doing stupid shit and getting hurt. But the government keeps changing the rules. They make it harder and harder to do it yourself, as opposed to hiring a big firm. Um, Legal issues. Like I refuse to make my own training programs. I use a big company's training program and I present it, but I am not coming up with material because I don't want the liability of, well, I thought it was correct, but they changed some rule that I didn't know about. Yeah, yeah. Um, a friend of mine is the Title One coordinator for a school that specifically works with troubled students. Um, they have a like not quite out of high school, but not quite college program into college, and she was teaching and helping with that. And the person that was primarily the coordinator basically gave up. They ran away right before the pandemic started, and they're like, "Hey, can you cover for her until we get somebody?" And then it was, "Hey, do you want this job? We would love to have you just continue because you're doing a great job." And we discovered that anybody we can convince to come do it will cost way more than we're going to pay. Yeah, yeah. I don't know that they quite were that far, but yeah, that concept. And yeah, yeah. I mean, she had some horror stories, even as watered down as she could give me. Uh, it was interesting. She was actually my COVID buddy because when school shut down for on campus stuff, she lived alone and I was living alone. But I'm an introvert and don't care. I fuck it, people can kiss off. And I was still going to work every day. She was like, "Oh my god, my social life just ended and my job just stopped. Like I'm working remotely, but I'm not seeing anybody. I'm not actually interacting with people directly." And I was like, "Well, just come down and crash at my place." And that was supposed to be for like, we were all thinking like a month, right? At most 2 weeks, a month. And that turned into like 6 months. So, so yeah, I got to listen to all the, oh my God, people are just incredibly stupid or obnoxious, or the whole thing with, was it Warren? No, whatever politician it was. No, the new Trump's education person, the idiocy that they pushed through related to all that stuff. Um, all the like, holy shit, they're not giving us enough time to implement this stuff and all that. She was pounding her head against the wall with it. She was a diehard liberal, anti-gun. Did said if you're living in this house, you cannot be clueless. No, no, God help me, I suck. I suck royally. Uh, like saying I play guitar is, I sing better than I play guitar, and nobody wants me to sing. Not even like happy birthday. Yeah, she was a classic New England liberal, and she still is very hardcore, but she's not clueless about it. She's actually thinking it through. And yeah, I took her to the range, and she's now a liberal that thinks guns are a lot of fun. So she has some interesting conversations with some of her friends who are also very liberal and rabidly anti-gun, but have never even touched one. I mean, a lot of my friends are relatively liberal. My own politics are pretty central on average, but you know, oh yeah, yeah. Most of the people I know who are rabidly anti-gun have never shot, have never gone to the range, have never touched one. Maybe they've seen one in real life. Maybe. I know plenty of people who don't like guns who are perfectly novel. Like my mom doesn't like guns. She grew up on a farm shooting all the time, is a relatively decent shot, just doesn't like them. And her politics are also very out there. I think it is true for most people. I think that the number of people who really are diehard one way or the other is so small, but they're loud. They're very loud, obnoxious, and they make it seem like they're the majority. It's one of the reasons I leave politics as politics uh, out of the channel as much as I can. I mean, I do post about some political issues, but it tends to be very specific and not the party based stuff necessarily. It's the this is stupid. And certainly, I mean, there's stupid stuff on the right. Uh, I think we're getting away from a lot of it because the hardcore religious right has kind of started to fall apart and become less dominant in the right hand spectrum. It's hard to be obnoxiously right wing if you actually apply your brain a little bit. You tend to be a little more normal. I will be right back. I'm gonna go grab a drink. Yeah, so I have a friend who is, let's just say, a brat. In fact, that's how she defines herself, as a brat. And I am she's an adult. She is a healthcare worker, elderly care, dementia care nurse. And she, in her personal life, complete disaster. Basically needs a keeper, which is hysterical because that's what she does for a living, right? But in her personal life, she just isn't. And her definition for me is extremely, like, what was the phrase? God, now I'm freaking an idiot. Um, but yeah, so I'm paraphrasing, but basically extremely moderate. Uh, my extremism is that I don't ever jump to extremes on anything. In fact, when we first met, we were at a party, both of us. Not we didn't know each other at all, and I was sitting in a chair on my own. The people I had been talking to had gone to get drinks, and she's getting basically not hassled, but like bugged by some guy. So she comes over and plops herself in my lap and goes, "You seem safe." And I basically replied, "Well, roll with that. We're good with that, right?" Uh, but since then, it kind of became a running joke. And cheers, we have virgin chocolate milk. I was going to put some vodka in it, but so hang on. You're working on law. You were in law enforcement, so maybe you can explain this to me. What was the deal with the media and I mean extremists, to put it bluntly, on the left, making the Kyle Rittenhouse issue racial? I could not understand it at all. Like, I never got an explanation from the media. The people bitching about it never made sense in what they were saying with it. Everybody involved was white. Like, there was the guy who tried to kick him, who just kept on going, was a black guy, I think. And the guy on the side of the road with the sign who like started toward him and then backed off was a black guy, I think. But like none of the people directly involved in the actual trial stuff was black or any other color. I mean, they were all white guys. Totally could not figure out how race came into play on it because, like, yeah, I mean, it started because of a black guy getting shot, which then caused the other riots and shit that had him there. But like the issue with him had nothing to do with race. And that was a huge deal. They kept talking about it. Not the trial, but like people following the trial and pitching a fit. Okay, so yeah, I'm not crazy. I wasn't missing something obvious. That was my assumption as well. That it was just we're using this high profile situation as a way to push our message. But I was like, did I miss something? Like, yeah, yeah. I'm just glad we didn't have anything. There was no major blowback after the verdict. I was very scared, not scared, but like concerned that that would blow up and be a huge issue. I have not heard of any of the jurors have had issues, but I imagine if we get another couple months in done. So what else you want to talk about? I have almost all of my handguns out and handy. Uh, Most of the rifles that have been on the channel, I've got the ARs out along with the 8mm. Uh, what else do I got? That's it. Oh, I mean, yeah, it was all feelings. That the irony is, I didn't follow any of what started that whole thing. Like it blew up into something else before I even caught up with what caused it. um, my favorite was um, the one at the I guess it was McDonald's, and people were going on and on about how the cops were in the wrong, and I'm like, okay, wait, don't get me wrong. There were lots of points where the cops could have de-escalated this along the way, and it started out as pretty bullshit, but in the end, he got himself shot. Like it was not the cops doing something wrong when the actual shooting happened. I mean, that's the part that always pisses me off about this stuff is, yeah, it's all about the feels. It's all about the agenda, not the specifics. Like they completely throw out the details. Um, and what's really blown my mind is that if you look at the people involved for most of these lately, it's like, really, these are the people you're going to throw up as your victims, as your symbols? I'm sorry, come up with some better freaking symbols. These are all scumbags. All of them, every single one of the people they were idolizing and using as an excuse for riots, they were all scumbags. Come on. You're telling me there isn't a real victim? There isn't somebody that some cop screwed up and shot that really was a decent person? Come on. We've got a couple 100 million people in this country. There's got to be one happening sometime. Uh, but I mean, they get on their high horse and they got an agenda to push, and they know that even if they totally bullshit it, a couple months later, nobody will remember it. But they've pushed their message. They've made some money. They've promoted their cause. So they think. I mean, when was the last time we heard about Afghanistan? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I grew up in a little tiny town in Western New York, and I'm pretty sure I knew every single black person in that town because they were all related. And I went to school with the middle boy. Uh, so he had two younger brothers that were in Cub Scouts, and I was one of the scout leadership for our group, and would get roped into doing things with the Cub Scouts because they needed like an after school. Hey, can you keep an eye on these kids for half an hour because the person that's supposed to be there is tied up, and it's in the school gym. There's staff around, but like, just don't let them get into too much trouble. And it was like, I mean, we're talking a town of 20,000 people, and I'm convinced there weren't 50 black people in the town, but nobody cared. It was just, yeah, I'm sure there were racist people in the town, but I mean, I left that town when I was in, when I started high school, and I, even to that point, had never heard it come up. It just, and my parents openly talked about local politics and gossip and all that, uh, not directly with us as kids, but like they didn't hide. If they like, they didn't like one of my school teachers, and I was well aware that he was an alcoholic womanizer, which didn't make me like him any less because he was still a cool teacher and drove a really hot Monte Carlo SS. Uh, looking back, I'm like, I mean, okay, he was an alcoholic, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but didn't seem like he was having that bad a life. I mean, small town school teacher back in the 80s, early 90s, he was apparently doing okay because he had a decent house, he was driving a nice car, and had money to spend on women. But yeah, it blows my mind when people, black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever it is, and it's always blown out of proportion. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, well, we're in South Florida because like there's like Miami, and then there's some of the really little places outside of town. But but yeah, I mean, it was, nowadays it's a 60,000 person town because it was the biggest thing in the area and it kept growing. Uh, but little tiny town in Western New York, not a lot of people coming and going, and it wasn't a place people would move to. So you had a primarily white population, and there was never any reason for new people to show up. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're in good company then because the majority of the black people there are probably lawyers, right? Or doctors. Every single person I know, no, I take that back. I now know somebody who's in international trade stuff. He does negotiations for international trade, who's in Fort Lauderdale. But every other one I know is a doctor or a lawyer down there. Everywhere else in Florida, all sorts of jobs. The only ones I know in Fort Lauderdale, other than the biker guy who does trade, is doctors and lawyers. White, black, Hispanic, uh, no Asians. Can't think of any Asians I know down there. So, and none of them are young. They're all, at least the ones I know, 50s and up. I mean, that's not old, but most of them are way out there because they're friends of my parents for the most part. So my parents are 80s now, so yeah, and most of their friends are older than them. And yeah, apparently the pandemic's so bad that none of their friends have died. Oh, except for the one that got killed in a car accident. There's an ad running locally. What are you trying to hunt? Because the 7.62 by 39, if it's something you can get into a hunting legal uh, configuration, is fine for deer hunting, hogs. The 5.56, coyotes. I wouldn't do whitetail. I wouldn't do hogs with the 5.56. People do it, but you're talking, even with the right ammo, suboptimal. And if you're new to hunting, don't start suboptimal, because you're not going to have pinpoint placement. You're not going to get that perfect shot. You want to have overkill. But I mean, if you've got an AR, if the 5.56 is in an AR, just get a different upper, get a different caliber, get a 6.5 Grendel, 300 Blackout, 300 Hammer. Um, my advice in Florida would be 300 Hammer, because you have shorter ranges. Okay, seriously, I think I missed him again. This freaking little fruit fly has been flying around my desk all night. Um, yeah, 300 Hammer is a brand new cartridge. I did a video on it a couple weeks ago, a month ago. Yeah. Um, but it basically is 30-30 in an AR-15, very similar to the 350 Legend, but in 30 caliber. And that'd be my choice, unless you were going somewhere else, in which case you've got to figure out what you want to do. But yeah, you want about 1,000 foot-pounds of energy at whatever range you're hitting them at. For deer and whitetail, or I mean deer and hogs. Hogs, I want 1,200 or more, or 1,000, 1,100 or so, whatever it is, with a good penetrating bullet. You don't want to do something that expands rapidly like you might on a deer. Because let's face it, you can shoot a hog and hit him in the shoulder plate, and some of the bullets that are great on deer won't get through the shoulder. Like it'll hit the plate. Forget the joint. They'll hit the plate and stop. Well, I mean, the shotgun with slugs will take anything. I mean, it's Florida. How far are you really expecting to shoot? If you're figuring 50 yards and in, which is pretty normal, if the AR's got a setup where you are comfortable taking a shot with a slug out to 50 yards, go to town. The AR AK, same. The straight up AK. How do you like that PSA AK? I don't know anybody else who's got one. They were a hot commodity, but I don't actually know anybody who had one, as opposed to, yeah, here, demo this rifle, we'll pay you. I mean, where I grew up, New York doesn't allow rifles for hunting. Very specific limitations, but basically everybody uses shotguns. And yeah, I mean, a 12 gauge shotgun with slugs was just a thing. And some guys would use buckshot, but they were the guys who were really, they were getting close. Which I never understood. The slug versus buckshot thing. Like, if you're that close, the slug's basically, the buckshot works as a slug. But they had their theories. I don't know. It worked. They all seem to be guys who always got their deer and Had no issues. It was definitely a rural redneck kind of town. We lived in the fancy part of town because we weren't. My dad was not a factory worker. There were only two levels of people in the town. There was the people who worked in the local little shops and the factory. There was one big factory for the town, and business owners and professionals, so to speak. And the funny part was a lot of the guys working in the factory made way more money. Like they were making more money than the local doctors because a skilled machinist who's been doing it for a while, I mean, they were making good money. But they had their section of town, everybody else, split. It was very strange. It had nothing to do socially. It was just where you lived. Well, I mean, Promag's shit. Promag's always shit. Well, yeah. I mean, that was always the question because like a Wasser got expensive. They used to be cheap, and now what? A grand, 1,200 for a Wasser. So I mean, I could be way off. It's been ages since I checked. But yeah, Promag is like the joke of the magazine world. Has been as long as I can remember, which has been interesting because there's certain things, the only company making them is Promag. Uh, like if you want a certain SKS mags, the only place you could get them was Promag. And people were always like, you'd buy 50 of them to get 10, and you just throw out the rest. Take the springs out, save them for later. Yeah, I may. Okay, so I was remembering correctly. A lot of this stuff when I do pricing, I'm like, I saw it there like at that price in passing, and for all I know, it's changed drastically in the last month or whatever. So whenever I like quote a real price in a video, I always make sure I actually went and Googled it right then, like that day, because otherwise, hell, I remember. People are like, "Well, this ammo was this price." I'm like, "Where?" I'm literally going to ammo when I quote prices on ammo or comparisons for price. I literally go to Ammo Seek and go, okay, it's not an anomaly price. It's not the dirt cheapest and out of whack. And just go through, okay, it's roughly 38 cents a round for steel. And then it's, 50 cents a round for brass or whatever it is. And that's the price I give for the video. And then people are like, well, I saw it for this. And I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, there's always something different somewhere else. And yeah, 2019 prices would be great. Um, I would be spending some money. I would be spending some money. I could do with a lot more of certain things. Like I'm good on a lot of stuff, but I mean I say that, but the irony is most of the stuff that I want to buy, not consumables, but like actual guns, they're not any more money. Little fucker. I think I still missed. He like flies right in front of my face, and then I can't catch him. Yeah, I hate you. That's just not right. How much are they now? Couldn't remember if they were PSA.com or Palmetto State Armory.com. Okay, so AK-47. I'd probably do the GF4. I don't like the front grip thing, but $1,000. Basically $1,000. Yeah, see, I haven't bought much in the last few years. What did I buy? I got my P320. I did the P80 build. When I moved here, I got another lower for an AR. I did an AR pistol build. Um, I mean, I built an AR upper too, really. Um, but most of those, that was right early 2019, or redoing parts of it in late 2019, because one of my early videos is me changing the handguard on my SBR because the one I got in I didn't like, and that was like the last big build I did. But there's stuff I want. Like I want to get a Glock. I want to have a regular standard Glock 17 or 19, mostly for the compatibility. Easy holster compatibility. Like there's stuff I want to demonstrate or test that, well, the P80 can't do it because it doesn't fit with that accessory. A lot of holsters and things like that, just it's different. The dimensions are different for the externals. And I wouldn't mind doing an AR-10, but building an AR-10 right now is expensive as hell. I have the magazines. I have a few other parts, but I don't have the receivers and I don't have a barrel. It's the main parts I need. Let's see. So yeah, I built that AR. I built the AR pistol setup, but I really already had the upper. So it was just the building the lower that I did on video. I'm amazed YouTube didn't ding me for that because I didn't physically assemble it on camera, but they get real shaky about anything like that. Yeah, I would kill for $550 with Magpul furniture. I would do that all day. Give me 3 of them. I don't even like AKs really, but at that price, just tuck them away. Yeah, yeah. I mean, is there an accessory you want? Glock, it's available for Glock. You want to try different holster? It's available for Glock. And as much as I dislike them personally, it's not that I have any problem with them. It's that I just think they're a soulless piece of shit. But they work. There is no issue that you cannot solve with a Glock through easily available aftermarket parts. With the exception being making it more concealable, because I think all the guns in that category, not just Glock, are not particularly concealable. I mean, you can, but compared to my little Timber, they print. They're uncomfortable until you've carried a little 1911 in a good inside the waistband holster, like a VM2 or equivalent. Everything else is not comfortable. Guys are like, oh yeah, my Glock is totally comfortable, no problem. Got this special holster, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, here, put this on. Now walk around for 10 minutes and come back and tell me you think your other gun is comfortable. That just hurts. I almost did one of their ARs instead of building my pistol because the price was just so good. But Palmetto State Armory still pisses me off because they won't do business in Connecticut, even though a lot of their stuff is legal in Connecticut. They just won't. And I'm like, you know what? Screw you. And that's carried over. They piss me off. Yeah, yeah. 365 has been selling like crazy. I was talking to Montequimo guys up the road, and they can't keep them in stock. He's like, we get them constantly. There's no shortage. The shortage is that people are buying them so fast we get one in, and usually one of their staff is buying it. Because they've got a lot of people who work part-time for them, and usually if it makes it out to the shelf, one of their people coming in that day is like, I'll take it. That is, just for amusing point of reference for Bernie, that's what Matt from Demolition Ranch carries. He is carrying a 365 right now. Well, probably not right now, but I imagine it is, 9 o'clock. He is probably at home hanging out with the kids and Matt. But I don't know if he's carrying the XL. That's my preference, but I don't know what one he's got. Hell, he's probably got both. I need to figure out the chat because I need to have it higher, because I'm looking at the chat down in the corner, and because my monitor is so big, the camera, let me see here, the camera's up there, and I'm looking down there, and it looks weird. Like if I could put the chat up here at the top, I'm actually pointing at the top of my screen. It looks like I'm pointing down, but I'm looking at the top of my screen. Right there, it'd be perfect. And I agree, by the way. The Glocks are just not comfortable. Outside the waistband, they're fine, but they're not concealable. Well, yeah, because my screen is so big that what you're seeing, my distance from it is that you're seeing the white in one of my eyes magnified as I look down into the corner. Yeah, it's driving me nuts because I see it on the screen, and that's normal. That's normal. Yeah, there we go. That's normal. But if I try to look straight, in order for me to look at the screen and see what you type, it throws it all off. I also tilt my head. Like, to me, this is normal, and my head is tilted. That feels very slanted to me, and I've always been that way. But yeah, I got to figure out the placement on things. I don't know. What I may do in the future is, if I don't need to be able to see the screen, I may hide it and set up just a chat up top in the center. Like, just have me seeing the bottom row of chat right there. Because that way I'm looking more at the camera. I'm looking up there. I also need to figure out why the hell my eye does that on camera that badly. And I'm looking at my other screen to see. It still looks like that. That's funny. Hang on, let me move the light real quick and see if it changes that. Wow, it still looks weird. I'm looking at my other screen. Not as bad. If I back up, still learning how far I can go. I've got a little table behind me. Yeah, it's a little better. It doesn't skew as far. It's just that I'm so close to it. Because you got to figure that the webcam is literally mounted on top of my monitor, and the monitor is only a foot from my face, 1.5 feet. The only one I have any experience with is not the RIA, which is actually one I'm interested in buying as a project gun, but I want to say it's Springfield, the EDM. It wasn't a full size, but I also have shot their full size. It was like a version of the Rangemaster or something that was in 9mm. I think they're still offering it, but they a new version because the original version wasn't popular. Oops, I don't want to review. I want take me to like, yeah, discontinued. Yeah, the one I tried was the discontinued one now. Range Officer Target, because it was stainless steel, adjustable sights. Oh, I'm not sure what the difference is between the Target and the Operator, other than the stainless steel. Whatever. In my experience, they're all fine. Like there's nothing special about it. If anything, the 9mm work better than the 45s because 45 is a big fat cartridge that's relatively short, and if you're gonna have feeding problems, 45 is a tough one to do. So if you're building a 1911 and you don't get it right in 45, you're gonna have feeding issues. You screw up in 9mm, it's probably still gonna work. Which is, I say that and I don't own one. It's been on my list for a while and it never quite makes it to the top of the list. There's always something I want more. And that's really funny that now I'm darker. That light is closer to me and directly in front of me. We're going to go to my software. Oh, great. Now I have a bright, shiny nose. There we go. It has a polymer trigger? That's fucked up. The whole design. I'm looking at it on their website. That is fucked up. That whole design is fucked up. So here are my thoughts on this. And this is obviously I've not touched one. I have not even read a real review on one. If the polymer trigger is polymer for the trigger bow in the back, it's not going to be as good a trigger as it should be, because it's going to flex a little bit. Even though it's in a channel, the polymer is going to have some give that it should not have. And part of the way that 1911 trigger works, if there's any give in the back and in the motion of it, you get a spongy trigger. And that defeats one of the purposes of a 1911. One of the reasons it's so popular is the trigger. Two, the slide cuts in the front like that, the way they're shaped, are going to eat a leather holster. And three, that looks like a very cool gun for a polymer holster, not concealed carry, for range use, for competition use, field use kind of thing, but not concealed carry in a leather holster because it loses all of the advantages a more traditionally designed 1911 has. You don't have, let me grab mine. So this shape down here And the curve up here, the fact that that's curved so strongly is part of why they are so effective at concealment. They are so slimly shaped. It tapers off at the edges rather than being a block. And it's deceptive because when you measure, how much narrower is a 1911 at certain points versus a Glock or a P320 or something like that, they're not that much thinner. And there are spots on a 1911 that are actually as wide, but it's rounded off. When you put that in a properly designed holster in your pants, it's comfortable. Your pants blend in. They don't go, oh, there's a piece of 2x4 in your pants. I am guessing, and I'm totally guessing, that that's a polymer trigger with an embedded aluminum or steel bow at the back, which to me is stupid, but maybe it's saving them $1. I don't know. I mean, a simple 1911 trigger is such an easy to machine part. Once you've got to have the tolerances right, like, I don't know, there's not a lot of room there for the polymer in the back, like in the actual trigger bow. So, I don't know. Seems fishy. I mean, I'm not against polymer on my guns. It has a place, but that's not a place I would put it. Like even a Glock and a P320, the rest of it is metal. Like you've got a plastic trigger, at least on the factory ones, but then it's a metal mechanism. It's the connecting rods and everything are metal. I do like the grip on that though. I like the fact that, like, from the factory, you're getting a flat grip. Not entirely flat, but like it's flat, and you're getting comfortable, not whatever you want to call that, stippling, checkering slots on the front of the grip. That's always been a pet peeve of mine, is that they don't put any grip on the front of a 1911, which is where you want it. Honestly, on my 1911s, I want side grip and front grip. I do not care about the back, and they always go to so much effort on the back. It's cheap, it's easy. Like even mine, I mean, I can't see if that's showing. There we go. I've got the snakeskin one because I thought it looked good. Almost like fish scales or snakeskin, because I was ordering a replacement part and I thought it looked good. But I don't care about like the checkering. In fact, it faces the wrong way. The checkering is sharp going this way, not this way. You slide going down. So under recoil, there's nothing there. Like, it doesn't help you at all. It only helps going this way. And I mean, honestly, it doesn't do shit. It's a little texture for your hand to feel, but that's it. But I have these grips because I wanted the laser right there. And I was like, well, all the options to give you a laser cost way more than buying these grips. They were on sale for like $79. And I only use that at the range. It lives with the 22 conversion on it. And I usually use it as a training tool for people new to handguns. It gets way more reps for that, or for me practicing a new technique. If I'm going, does this work better for me? Is there something I can learn from this style? Very often I'll do it with this guy because it's cheap. It's the only 22 pistol I've got that works reliably. I don't. I don't. Let's see, what do I have? I have a VM2 for my HK, but that's not a striker fired. If I was going to carry concealed my P320 or my P80, excuse me, I would get a VM2 from Milt Sparks. What else? Yeah, I don't carry them concealed. Or if I do, it was up north in the winter, outside the waistband, and it doesn't matter. Just something that keeps it relatively close to your body. I have carried my P320 a few times in the factory paddle holster. Worked fine, but I had a big heavy coat over it, so I could have been concealed carrying a shotgun for all anybody could tell. Yeah, I mean, my little Kimber 1911 is my concealed carry, and the only other thing I carry is this guy, and I haven't carried it in years. I used to carry it in my pocket, like a jacket pocket usually. The catch is always what's comfortable, what's easy to do. There's nothing I own that is even close to as comfortable and concealable as that little Kimber. And there's something special about being a Kimber. It could be any other brand, small 1911. The only thing that would be better would be a officer size grip bobbed. I don't know if anybody bobs them. The officer size grip, you start getting into, there's only so much room for that spring, and I don't know that anybody does it. Let's look. Wow, when I Googled that, I'm getting things from like 2017. I'm not getting, oh, there we go. No, that's still old. Yeah, nobody's talking about it. I'm guessing that it's not a thing for bobtail. What is my favorite rifle and why? Too situational. I don't get locked in on a particular rifle. The one I think is the most fun. Let me get these out of here. This is the one that I think is the most fun. Right now it's on the pistol lower, but it's basically my SBR. And it's the most fun because it's 300 blackout suppressed, and it's stupid short. I mean, it's my torso. Let's see. Yeah. I mean, the rifle is not touching the chair at this point. Like it's standing up and there's an inch between the butt and the chair. So tons of fun, perfectly effective, not super light with the suppressor, and the barrel isn't super light. It's a midweight. It's the Faxon Gunner barrel, so it's relatively midweight. And the rest of it wasn't built super light. When I have it in the SBR setup, the stock is actually Voltor EMOD. So it's not a light stock. It has a freaking metal plate on the back of it. But tons of fun on this thing. Suppressed, you just hear it operating. You just hear it cycling, and that's it. Suppressed subsonics, sorry. Supers, I mean, it's a perfectly capable deer hog gun. So you get both ends of the spectrum. I know people that do suppressed subsonic solids for hogs because they penetrate really well. You basically can punch halfway through a hog, maybe 3/4 of the way through. And if you get a head hit, like you're going to go through the skull. Not really. I mean, I've messed with them a couple times. A lot of people love them. If it's not an outside the waistband paddle holster, I pretty much go Milt Sparks or Kirkpatrick leather, and just quality leather. And I understand you're in Florida and you're in South Florida. It is hot and sweaty. That is not the same answer. Like you got a different situation. Um, but yeah, I don't know. A lot of people love them. I mean, there's a reason they've been one of the most successful holsters in the modern era. So my other favorite would be this guy, which is my What Would Stoner Do build. I'm trying to get freaking, there we go. And cab arms lower, Mark II, super light upper. I mean, it is pencil barrel, 16 inches, unfortunately, because I was building it in Connecticut. Super light rail, and the primary arms 2X. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you down there. I mean, you'll eat leather. You're just. If I was going to buy a good leather inside the waistband holster, I would just consider it a consumable. It's something you're going to replace yearly, unless you only wear it, once in a while, or in an environment that you're not sweating all the time. I mean, I've seen guys that basically turn them into mush in a summer. Yeah, it's an issue. I mean, I have a BM2. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's 20 years old, and I mean, I wore it yesterday. It's don't even think twice. It's perfectly fine. And I've put some holster conditioner on it a couple times in the 20 years I've had it. But that's why I paid 120 something dollars, and I think they're 160 now instead of $50. My Kirkpatrick leather is not up to that quality level, but on the other hand, I mean, it's 15, 16 years old, but it's an outside the waistband holster. I have a couple of those, and they're outside the waistband. I mean, honestly, Kydex, plastic, you know, yeah, I mean, it is until you actually handle and shoot one. People can talk about it all we want. It won't sink in as you use one. It's like the first time you shoot a serious caliber rifle. Um, versus like a 5.56 or a pistol caliber rifle. Like the first time you shoot a 308, oh my freaking eye! I got like something in it. It's a different experience, and this is a different experience in the other direction. The gun feels like a toy. That whole myth that like it was a gun by Mattel in Vietnam. Yeah, yeah. The freaking right eye just started watering, so it started to like a burning sensation. But yeah, I mean, I built that, and ever since then, that's been one of my favorites. It goes to the range all the time. If you told me I had to like bug out and shit was real, like you're bugging out wearing armor and gear, I would have a really hard time not taking that instead of the SBR. I think I would take the SBR just for the option to do subsonics, but the suppressor goes on that. I mean, it just makes it a long rifle, 24 inches instead of 16. But I would have a hard time deciding. I think it would come down to I'm in a hurry. which set of mags is already in the plate carrier might be the deciding factor. If I already had 5.56 loaded and ready to go in the plate carrier, and I threw that on, like I wouldn't bother changing mags. I just grabbed that rifle. The only reason I might not is the same reason I want to buy the KDE update, the new one, because the sling for this one is a pain in my ass. It's never been a great setup. Whereas the sling on the new one is very similar to what I run on my SBR, and that's my preference. But it is worth noting, you have to do the whole thing or it doesn't work. The super lightweight upper on a regular traditional lower, forget it. It'll mostly settle down. We have not had 5 people in here. There are 4 people in there. We have 5 likes, but I've only seen the 2 of you. There were 2 people, and then there's me. So even if both of you liked, and then my ghost account, that's 3. So apparently a couple people popped in, hit like, and didn't bother subscribing to talk. Take it easy, man. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I don't know if I'll get a video up before New Year, probably, but take it easy. I guess I will probably call it a night. What are we at? 9:40. Yeah. I'll probably have a real drink. Go call a few people and harass them before they go to bed, but do it. Get a what would Stoner do build. Even if you just buy the lower and build a similar upper, or buy the upper and the lower and then do your own parts kit. Their trigger is nothing great. It's nothing special. It's not bad, but it's not. Feel free to do whatever trigger and stuff you want. And same with the buffer. The silent JP spring buffer is great. It doesn't make any difference on the rifle. It's a little quieter when you don't hear the sproing in your ear. Good night. Take care. And I am going to close it out. Bro, I haven't heard that in a while. Ciao.